There was a feeling of a scent, and then the animal was gone. Travis sighed. The Apache scouts were subtle and alert, but the coyotes could far outdo any man. With Nalik'ideyu and Naginta flanking her flight, Kaydessa would be well guarded. She would probably never see her guards or know that they were running protection for her. "That was a good move," Jil-Lee said, coming out of concealment. "But what have you done to yourself?" He stepped closer, pulling Travis's hand away from his side. By the time Lupe came to report, Travis was again wound in a strapping bandage, pulled tightly about his lower ribs, and reconciled to the fact that any trailing he would do must be well to the rear of the first party. "The towers," he said to Jil-Lee. "If our plan works, we can catch part of the Reds here. But we still have their ship to take, and for that we need help which we may find at the towers. Or at least we can be on guard there if they return with Kaydessa on that path." Lupe dropped down lightly from an upper ledge. He was grinning. "That woman is one who thinks. She runs from the ship first as a rabbit with a wolf at her heels. Then she begins to think, she climbs." He lifted one finger to the slope behind them. "She goes behind a rock to watch under cover. When Fox comes from the ship with Eskelta, again she climbs. Buck lets himself be seen, so she moves east as we wish." "And now?" questioned Travis. "She is keeping to the highways. Almost she thinks like one of the people on the war trail. Nolan believes she will hole up for the night somewhere above. He will make sure." Travis licked his lips. "She has no food or water." Jil-Lee's lips shaped a smile. "They will see that she comes upon both as if by chance. We have planned all of this, as you know, younger brother." That was true. Travis knew that Kaydessa would be guided without her knowledge by the accidental appearance now and then of some pursuer, just enough to push her alone. "Then, too, she is now armed," Jil-Lee added. "How?" demanded Travis. "Look to your own belt, younger brother. Where is your knife?" Startled, Travis glanced down. His sheath was empty, and he had not needed that blade since he had drawn it to cut meat at the morning meal. Lupe laughed. "She had steel in her hand when she came out of that ghost ship." "Took it from me while we struggled." Travis was openly surprised. He had considered the frenzy displayed by the Tatar girl as an outburst of almost mindless terror. Yet Kaydessa had had wit enough to take his knife. Could this be another case where one race was less affected by a mind machine than the other? Just as the Apaches had not been governed by the red collar, so the Tatars might not be as sensitive to the redax. "She is a strong one, that woman. One worth many ponies." Eskelta reverted to the old measure of a wife's value. "That is true," Travis agreed emphatically, and then was annoyed at the broadening of Jil-Lee's smile. Abruptly he changed the subject. "Manulito is setting the booby trap in the ship." "That is well. He and Eskelta will remain here, and you with them." "Not so. We must go to the towers," Travis protested. "I thought," Jil-Lee cut in, "that you believed the weapons of the old ones too dangerous for us to use." "Maybe they will be forced into our hands. But we must be sure the towers are not entered by the Reds on their way here." "That is reasonable. But for you, younger brother, no trailing today. Perhaps not tomorrow. If that wound opens again, you might have much bad trouble." Travis was forced to accept that, in spite of his worry and impatience. And the next day, when he did move on, he had only the report that Kaydessa had sheltered beside a pool for the night and was doggedly moving back across the mountains. 3 days later, Travis, Jil-Lee, and Buck came into the Tower Valley. Kaydessa was in the northern foothills, twice turned back from the west and the freedom of the outlaws by the Apache scouts. And only half an hour before, Tsoay had reported by mirror what should have been welcome news. The red helicopter was cruising as it had on the day they watched the hunters enter the uplands. There was an excellent chance of the fugitives being sighted and picked up soon. Tsoay had also spotted a party of 3 Tatars watching the helicopter, but after one wide sweep of the flyer, they had taken to their ponies and ridden away at the fastest pace their mounts could manage in this rough territory. On a stretch of smooth earth, Buck scratched a trail and they studied it. The Reds would have to follow this route to seek the wrecked ship, a route covered by Apache sentinels, and following the chain of communication, the result of the trap would be reported to the party at the towers. The waiting was the most difficult. Too many imponderables did not allow for unemotional thinking. Travis was down to the last shred of patience when word came on the second morning at the hidden valley that Kaydessa had been picked up by a Red patrol, drawn out to meet them by the caller. Now, the tower weapons, Buck answered the report with an imperative order to Travis, and the other knew he could no longer postpone the inevitable. And only by action could he blot out the haunting mental picture of Kaydessa once more drawn into the bondage she so hated. Flanked by Jil-Lee and Buck, he climbed back through the tower window and faced the glowing pillar. He crossed the room, put out both hands to the sleek pole, uncertain if the weird transport would work again. He heard the sharp gasp from the others as his body was sucked against the pillar and carried downward through the well. Buck followed him, and Jil-Lee came last. Then Travis led the way along the underground corridor to the room with the table and the reader. He sat down on the bench, fumbled with the pile of tape discs, knowing that the other 2 were watching him with almost hostile intentness. He snapped a disc into the reader, hoping he could correctly interpret the directions it gave. He looked up at the wall before him. 3, 4 steps, the correct move, and then an unlocking. "You know?" Buck demanded. "I can guess." "Well," Jil-Lee moved to the table. "What do we do?" "This." Travis came from behind the table, walked to the wall. He put out both hands, flattened his palms against the green-blue-purple surface, and slid them slowly along. Under his touch, the material of the wall was cool and hard, unlike the live feel the pillar had. Cool until one palm held at arm's length had found the right spot. He slid the other hand along in the opposite direction until his arms were level with his shoulders. His fingers were able now to press on those points of warmth. Travis tensed and pushed hard with all 10 fingers. This concludes the reading of Chapter 15.